Everybody, welcome back to Reckoning with Jason Herbert. I am your host and creator, Jason Herbert, and this is not a rerun. The two guys appearing with us today are our longtime guests and two of my close friends in the world, Robert Greene II and Craig Bruce Smith, and we're talking about The Running Man today, the 1987 Arnold Schwarzenegger film that a lot of us just absolutely love. And we went back and revisited this film, talking about what it gets right, the things that it doesn't get wrong, and what we love about Schwarzenegger. So sit back and relax. The Running Man is next on Reckoning with Jason Herbert. Robert Greene II, Craig Bruce Smith. This must be a rerun, gentlemen, because you're back on this podcast to talk about Arnold.
There's no one else you could get.
There's nobody else I would say yes.
Well, we also have it written into our contracts.
You do. There is a thing also because I was, my son was here, and I've been trying to take a little bit of a break from the pod and from the writing and things like that over the summer. And I was like, we are out of podcasts. Who's going to Rob, Craig, please? And of course, thankfully neither of you have lives outside of this pod. So thank you for that.
For the kind words there.
All right. It happened to be your all-purpose emergency button.
You know what? I have told the story before, but it was a conversation that made the three of us friends that put in my head this whole, hey, historians like movies thing years and years and years ago. And it involved Arnold. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But we're going to do a different take on our Arnold conversation today. I think you're going to like it. Before we jump into that, you guys want to introduce yourselves and give us your bona fides and the reason why you're here? Rob, you're first.
Sure. I'm Dr. Robert Greene II, an associate professor of history at Claflin University, and also the president of the African American Intellectual History Society. And I suppose I am here because I am very much an 80s baby and love action films from the 80s, early 90s. And I think The Running Man is one of the best examples of that particular genre.
Craig Bruce Smith. I'm a historian, author of American Honor. And all views are mine and do not represent anyone, certainly not that of ICS either. So just want to make that clear.
All right. I don't want to bury the lead. Craig, we have some big information for our viewers. Arnold just met you.
Yes.
So can you talk to us a little bit about what that was like for Arnold? And do you think he was nervous when he got to meet presidential historian Craig Bruce Smith?
Well, I don't know what was in his mind, but I can say what was in mine. And
okay.
I met Arnold at Mount Vernon. So I met the last action hero at the home of the first action hero and first president. When I say surreal, that's probably underselling it a bit, at least for me. And I know, again, it's no secret Arnold has been a personal hero of mine. That's no secret. One of the greatest living Americans. So meeting him was pretty incredible, especially, he's giving a speech at Mount Vernon. He's talking about George Washington. He's talking about the American dream, talking about an idea of America. He's talking about his entire career. He's making jokes about how he's going to play Washington in his next movie and Danny DeVito is going to play Martha. It's great stuff. But I have to say one of the strangest moments I could say in my life was, so I got to do the Predator handshake with him.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
But more than that is, so we're doing it, and he says, you have to look me in the eye while we're doing it. And
how many times has he done this in his life?
I'm sure he's done it. I have no idea.
I would be crapping my pants. I would be like, I don't know how my arm works anymore. Like,
so I'm doing this, and I'm looking at him in the eyes, and he's looking back, like doing Arnold's squinty eye.
Right.
And I'm just like, what is like happening? Like
this is my life.
So we do it. He's fantastic.
Did he call you a son of a bitch?
We didn't do the full lines. He's fantastic. He's fantastic with my wife. He's fantastic with my daughter. He's holding up like my daughter's arm, like,
Wonderful.
come on, you're the champion. She's like, I want to talk about your reindeer and, Jingle on the Way. But it was great. I got to, I had an interview with him for an article I wrote for The Atlantic, where we talked about George Washington and Cincinnatus and how he first learned about George Washington, which was actually from he was new to America, so he's only been here for about a year, and he was a fan of Richard Nixon at the time, and someone gave him a book. Again, I'm not sure. I'm not sure he even remembered the exact title, but again, I might have garbled it. Basically, it's a book that says that George Washington was a Republican president. So new immigrant Arnold was led to believe by his fellow Americans that George Washington was the first Republican. So in his mind, he sort of for a lot of years equated that. Obviously, he's realized that the man who is famous for not being of party was not the first Republican. But then we talked about that he actually came to George Washington through Cincinnatus, the famed Roman who gave up power. So the whole thing was pretty amazing. Arnold's staff, particularly Daniel Ketchel, is absolutely fantastic. So it was bizarre in the best possible way. So again, sent that picture around to anyone I've ever met.
Of course,
I knew you for 5 minutes. You got that picture.
Absolutely.
And the hardest part. So I knew this was going to happen a little bit ahead of time. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell you guys even, because I was so terrified something was going to happen or who knows. So I didn't want to spoil the surprise, and people knew he was going to be at Mount Vernon. Like, oh, are you going? Are you going? And I was like, So it was great.
That's amazing. I want to ask you just one last question, Craig, which is actually about the man's physicality, because now you've had a chance to actually meet him.
Yeah.
Arnold is in his 70s now, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What's his physical presence like? Because so much of what we've talked about when it comes to Arnold, we've talked about him in a lot of different pods.
Yeah.
It's obviously related to his physicality. It's what he's first known for. What's he like physically? Like when you shook the hand, is this guy still a rock?
Yeah, no, he's still got it. His arms, even in his 70s, are like 5 times the size of yours.
That's not correct.
So I was, standing next to him like, wow, Jason looks so small by comparison. No, he still looks the part. When you hear the voice, the voice is, it's got that heft to it. And it was just, again, like my brain, like, again, it sounds, people are going to, make fun of me. Oh, he's fanboying. Yeah, I am. But you're there, he's talking to me, like I hear the voice that I've heard for so many years, and it's like, but it's too new.
Here.
And it was
he's looking at you.
Just something different. Again, I've corresponded with him previously, but never, like that. It was
that's wonderful.
That's honestly, that's the first thing everyone asks me about. Well, how big is he?
Yeah. It's
like, yeah, still looks pretty good.
Well, it makes sense, right? Just because his career is based off of his own physicality. And, I would love to have another conversation with you at some point in time, Craig, where we can talk about like Schwarzenegger, the politician, because I think he's fascinating. I read his book his one of his books last year. And really, I too have always been a fan.
I would argue again, and I know this is almost sacrilegious. I would argue his latest act is perhaps his most important and his most consequential, even over bodybuilder Arnold and movie star Arnold and even politician Arnold, sort of American Arnold.
Goodwill Arnold.
Mm-hmm. Greater, common good. I think that's the best version of him that we've seen.
Rob, what do you think, man? You too have. I mean, you grew up with Arnold just like the two of us. You have thoughts on the fourth act of Arnold?
I think it's actually, I think Craig is absolutely right, especially because Arnold's providing this.
I hate it when that happens.
He's providing a point of view as an immigrant in particular that I think is very valuable. But he has, and I think it would be funny to have somebody, if you were able to show someone in, say, 1987, what 2025 Arnold's talking about. It would be, I think, a bit jarring, but at the same time, it makes a lot of sense because as an immigrant, he has embraced a uniquely positive vision of American society. One that I think is actually quite refreshing in a lot of ways. While at the same time, he's not shying away from some of the darker aspects of our past. He's saying there is a lot of good here that we could still embrace together. And I think that's a very powerful message for someone like him to express.
He said at Mount Vernon, he said, like, as he was speaking to immigrants, he said, listen, you all wanted to come here. You recognize that there's greatness here in America. So that's for another podcast.
No, and I absolutely want to have that pod. I want to talk about it. Frankly, I think it would be really cool to create a course called Arnold Schwarzenegger's America.
Oh, I've actually I've talked about that back when I was still teaching undergrads. My fear, though, is that they would be like, who
is Arnold Schwarzenegger?
That is my biggest fear. And then the class would just devolve to, we will now be watching movies for the next 3 months.
I think it's fascinating, and you can take almost any person. I wanted to do a course called Johnny Cash's America. You could do one with Dolly Parton. You could do it with anyone, right? And just build a course around the person and stuff. So maybe we'll do that someplace. Rob, Craig, please come back on. All right, let's jump into The Running Man. And I want to ask you guys a couple quick questions early on about The Running Man. We've done several Schwarzenegger films on this pod now. Very first pod, if people are listening in right now, our very first test pod was actually with these two gentlemen here talking about Predator.
Talking about the same year on top of it, right?
Well, we're going to get into that too. So Predator is probably second most famous film would be my guess, behind the Terminator franchise, certainly. When we talk about Running Man, it's like, hey, let's do an Arnold film. We were kind of debating, like, which one do we do? Right? There's so many. So The Running Man. Where does The Running Man fit into the Arnold pantheon?
It's not all right. It's not a top 5. I don't even think it's a top 6. That's not a slight on the movie. It's just he's got some ones that you can't knock off.
Sure.
And there are ones in there that I personally love that we could argue about. Like, so a movie like Commando, which I think is the best
pod. We're going to do that
ever,
pod. Yeah.
But I am willing to concede that there may be other movies that are better than it. Same thing like something like The Last Action Hero, which I think is brilliant, but a lot of people just didn't get it. I think that speaks more to the audience than the movie.
We have to do both Commando and Last Action. Or actually, guys, we're going to do the entire filmography.
We might as well.
Write it down.
I think it's probably a top 10?
10, 12?
Yeah, it's in there. Again, I don't know where it would rank. I think it's aged a little bit. But it's a top. I would say it's a top 10.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. But I think what also affects how The Running Man is seen by people is how often it's on television. Because I can recall seeing it a lot on TBS back in the day. Like, it was on all the time.
Yes.
And it was one of those Schwarzenegger films that I didn't know as much about. You guys mentioned the Terminator films, Commando, Last Action Hero. I would throw in True Lies as well. But
of course,
I think The Running Man is one of those Arnold films that's sort of overshadowed by his bigger films. I think in the same category, I won't say in terms of quality, but in terms of being remembered, as films like Raw Deal, for example. That when you really dive into the Schwarzenegger corpus of work, there's a certain point at which you start getting to the films that aren't as well remembered. And I think The Running Man is kind of that demarcation point. I think most folks know it more so because of all the one-liners, number one. And number two, it has one of the weirdest casts of all time, in my opinion, in terms of who's in the film and why they're in the film and what it represents. But I think The Running Man, I don't want to use the term cult classic because it's overused, but I do think it's one of those beloved Arnold films you can just kind of put on and just turn your mind off for like an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Yeah, again, I think you're right. It was TBS or TNT that I think had it on like every Saturday afternoon. in the 90s. But yeah, again, it's a good action movie. If you are tuning into this for a detailed, intricate plot, the fault is with you. It's got the good action movie sense of, look here, dystopian future. Look, there's some stuff going on. Yeah, it's kind of sort of futuristic, but everyone looks like they're still dressed from the 80s. But we put masks and baseball helmets on our security guards, so it's futuristic. That's all you need. Slap Arnold in a yellow tracksuit and you're good.
So I look at this film, gentlemen, and there are a couple of things I think about. Rob, I think you make a really good point. This is I think this film, like if we think about like the Arnold movies in tiers, right? I feel like this is like the bottom film of the first tier of films. Like this is like you're saying that demarcation point before you jump off into like the second level, and then there are the third level films that like that people didn't watch, right? I mean, because there was a down moment in his own career. So I think there's that. The fact that this came out the same year Predator did, within a few months, is just bananas to me. I think it obviously gets overshadowed by that, and it gets sandwiched between maybe probably another film. We're going to get into Total Recall in a bit. We're going to talk about a lot about Total Recall.
Yeah, it's if this came out at a different moment, but like talk about 1987, what a year!
Yeah, right. I mean 87. I mean, guys, I was 10 years old. I mean, oh my gosh, great year. But then there's also, I think that there's a problem. Like this is when I look at this film, I go, man, if this film had a better director. Like I feel like one of the things that hurts this film is its potential, because I feel like a lot of ways when I went back to rewatch it, it's like you don't have McTiernan. If John McTiernan directs this film, it's a much better film.
Oh, of course.
Mm-hmm.
If we had a better, this is one of the ones where it really got hurt by, I think, production value on it. And I think that maybe in 87, for some strange reason, the studios were a little hesitant to give Arnold the full production, a vehicle at that point in time. But those are some early thoughts. Can I tell you a thing that I got very excited about when I was rewatching this? The TriStar home video thing when it came on. Remember with the Pegasus as it comes on? I was like, oh my gosh, because that, Rob, as you're talking about, was like, that's that core memory of like sitting down watching on a VHS. You knew like you were going to get one of these movies that came out, and I loved it. So
I also love how they're still talking about VHS in the supposed far distant future.
Sure.
2017.
Well, that's another aspect that definitely on top of it. Like, yeah, we've had all these dystopian films come out that we have lived past now. And I was like, I remember, in the 80s, 2017 seems so gosh darn far away. And we are 2 days removed from my own birthday when I was like, oh man, this sucks. Yeah. It's like, all right, I have a question. Here, I'm going to ask you guys some random questions through the film is what we're going to do.
Okay.
First and foremost. Why have we not seen Arnold with a beard in a film since this movie?
We have. He had a goatee in Escape Plan.
Bottom tier.
Oh.
Go on.
He technically had a beard at the end of Conan. Wasn't a real one, but
that's what we deserve. King Conan.
Oh,
with
absolutely.
The beard. And he's the age now. Right. Why that hasn't been created, scripted, greenlit? We only have so many more. He's a 70-something-year-old man with a bad heart. Where's our King Conan film we got promised in 1981? I'm sorry, but go ahead. Do it. Yeah.
So, and I think he might have had some beard, or at least some thick stubble, and he did a couple ones like Maggie and the one I forget the name.
Days he may have had a.
Yeah, he had really
end of day.
Yeah, it was like stubble / beard. It's like a Herbert beard.
That wow, it's just okay. All right, I had for you, my friend. I had for you the tape measure right here. We are gonna do Jason's Arnold arms versus Arnold's arms, but now we're just gonna put that away because you are being impolite. But it's kind of crazy when you think about it that beards are really common. It's certainly more so now in our current era than say the 80s. Yeah. But it's kind of strange that we're going here. It's like the man's made so many dozens of films, and we're going, oh, what others has he done? He's been a beard, and he's never really rocked, even though now commonly wears a beard in his day-to-day life. And frankly, he looks good.
But who can forget the Ben Richards mustache in the mugshots?
Okay. All right. I have another question for you. We have a callback in this film to Commando, which I also agree, Craig, is maybe the single most perfect straight action film ever made, right? Which is Arnold rocking the big steel pipe, right? That's clearly a callback to Commando. So here's my question, Rob, Craig, which is more butch? Is it the steel pipe or is it the log that is carrying Commando? Which one is heavier? Which is more impressive?
I don't know of what a steel girder weighs as opposed to like some California redwood, but to me, I still got to give it to the tree because the tree had the heft and it was like 20 feet long.
Well, I think even Arnold himself said in he did an AMA Reddit years and years ago, he joked about when he read the script for Commando and saw that was in the script, he said, okay, that's what this kind of movie is going to be. Right off the bat, just carrying the giant log. And I think also the giant log, going back to our earlier conversation, in a lot of ways, it's very symbolic of Americana in a way, like carrying a giant log like that with one arm, with the sun shining behind him. It's very, very symbolic. Right.
But the best part was the flannel shirt underneath it. Just, you could do it now. Just stuff a flannel shirt under it.
But it was also symbolic of a man at peace in the world, right? He had retired from the military. He's raising his daughter out in the California wilderness or whatever, right? And now you've got the big steel girder. This is a different world that Arnold's living in, right? That Ben Richards is in. It's post-industrial. It's almost kind of post-apocalyptic dystopian world where now he's wearing the steel. It's very much saying I'm still the big strong Arnold, but it's a different world,
right?
That I'm carrying around on my massive, not quite as big, just Jason's shoulders.
Although, did you know that someone actually makes a custom action figure of just the log from Commando? No joke.
Where can I buy that? I'm in.
Gracious.
All right, I want to ask you guys, this film comes out in 1987. When you were watching this film, were there moments you were like, okay, this is clearly a sign that this film came out in the 80s, that this film was produced? How is this movie? If someone's watching this film saying, hey, I want to know what the 80s look like or what people are doing in the 80s, how does this movie reflect what the 80s is?
Well, I think
because every dystopian film has has its own signs, right, of its own era.
Yeah, I mean, I think for one thing, you mentioned the production value earlier. It looks like an 80s film. Like you can just tell right off the bat, It was made in the 80s, and it's not as high a budget of film as some of the other Arnold films from that same era. Right. But not only that, I think in terms of going back to the cast for a second, you've got Jesse the Body Ventura, you've got Jim Brown, which that part always blows my mind is that Jim Brown's in this movie. Mm-hmm. But just the cavalcade of wrestlers, you got Toru Tanaka's also in it. It's very much a tough guy film, and it's all these 80s. If you grew up in the 80s, you recognize most of the actors in the film for their other roles, whether it was in sport or in other films or what have you.
Where's Bill Duke in this film?
Well, I
feel like we're missing Bill Duke.
I think his chest was still blown up open and he's laying in the jungle in Valverde. I don't know.
Maybe he was still dead from being eaten as a Green Beret for breakfast. So
also you got a lot of Arnold friends in this. Arnold, you'll see there's a lot of recasting. A lot of actors do this, but Franco Columbo's a security guard. Sven Thorson from Conan and more recently Gladiator. Obviously Jesse Ventura. So it's a great year for future governors in film.
I had him. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I would say, it's definitely the 80s. And I feel like they didn't even try for like a futuristic look. It's just like, I'm just going to go downtown somewhere. I'm going to grab a bunch of random people. I'm going to slap them in.
There was a bit of a Thunderdome-ish kind of feel to it, to like when they come through the sleds, like early on, I thought.
Yeah, but the whole thing, there are elements even that it feels like Batman and Robin when they have that neon biker gang race. But I mean, you have a dance choreographed by Paula Abdul. I mean, it's as 80s as it gets.
Can I tell you, I was watching that. I was like, God, the dance routine. So she was a really respected choreographer back in the day. I mean, I think most audiences now think about her from, from the shows and all that stuff. But like, she's like she was a Laker girl, if I recall correctly. And then what became this amazing, like, did all this choreography. It like wasn't a joke. Like, it wasn't like it wasn't a stunt that they hired her to do this. She was like good at it. She understood like what that was supposed to look like. Smoking indoors.
Oh, I'll trump your smoking indoors with waving someone through at the airport without an ID.
Okay. Let alone wearing shoes. Coca-Cola costs $6.
Again, I haven't bought a soda in probably like 30 years, so I don't even know what they cost. What do they cost today?
A 20-ounce Coke's probably like three and a quarter, something like that now. They're not cheap. They've gotten more expensive recently. I've recently gave up soda, so I am I'm off the juice. I wanted to ask you, going back to this idea that sometimes this film gets forgotten. I have a hot take on this, guys, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this. So much of Arnold, as we talked about earlier, is the physicality of it, and it's usually he's either shirtless at times, or at least the arms are like the arms are available, right? I think one of the things that hurts this film is the fact that he's wearing that suit the entire film, and it's like you don't see what you come to see, which is the rippling muscles of Arnold. I almost feel like when we think about who Ben Richards is, say in comparison to the other characters that he's played over time, in my head I go, well, this guy isn't as tough as Commando Arnold or Predator Arnold. But I'm like, why would I say that? He's still carrying the steel pipe, right? Do you think the suit hurts him? Is my point.
No,
in the Arnold
I
legacy.
honestly didn't think of this watching again. Obviously, the suit is, you remember the suit, but I never really thought of it that way. But you're right in that if you think about even the rest of the cast, they're showing a lot more arms of like Buzzsaw, for instance.
Right. Oh yeah.
And Buzzsaw is taller than Arnold, and he's larger, but is he more defined? Is he going to look as impressive? No.
Jesse looks better in this film.
Yeah. But it's they have that brief moment, where he's in the work camp or the prison work yard, whatever that is, and running the escape where they have, I'll get 9 points for his biceps alone.
Right.
But then they never don't show him. And in the suit, really, bodies are really kind of interchangeable with that Adidas, woven padded shoulders and stuff. But yeah, I think you're right that we talked about previous, in a gladiatorial fight, which Arnold character wins. But here we actually have Ben Richards, who's winning in gladiatorial fights against experienced, gladiators. And we're like, we collectively, all three of us have said he is not at the peak.
He's not peak.
Yeah.
It's good, but he's not peak.
Why? But why didn't he just kill a bunch of incredibly big, tough guys? I don't know. Is it the suit? I'll bite on that. I think that's fair.
I mean, I think that's actually a really interesting argument that I can't totally disagree with, because the thing about that suit too is that on the one hand, when you see that Arnold in the suit, you instantly know which movie it's from. There are some Arnold films where you're like, this might be Terminator, might be this or that, but there are some looks that he has that you know which film it is, like Commando or Terminator films with a leather jacket, etc.
You could argue Commando and Predator get mixed up all the time.
Absolutely. He's essentially the same character, which is why we have continually had this debate for years.
That's true.
Yeah, it's almost like they missed the opportunity to like rip the suit up early on, like when he first comes out or gets in the fight with Sub-Zero, and maybe like the suit gets ripped up and he's got at least the arms come off, or so, like he's not going to run around topless.
But why not? He could just rip it off because he doesn't want to advertise for ICS.
Yeah, he definitely could. Like, I don't want this on, right, or whatever. So, I think that is my very first Arnold impression. 100 and some odd episodes into this podcast. I've got another question for you here. What is Sub-Zero a professor of?
Death.
Being plain zero, apparently.
No, you what you got to give me. What is Professor Sub-Zero?
Well, that's a holdover from Professor Toru Tanaka. So that they're just bringing in his wrestling gimmick, which was known. He was a WWF tag team champ with Mr. Fuji.
Mm-hmm.
He was known, and your WWF crowd is exactly the sort of person that's seeing this movie. So it's a nod to the audience.
There is something to be said too. Number one about that. I mean, the fact this is 1987. This is the year of WrestleMania 3. It's the peak of wrestling in America in some ways, but also I think with Toru Tanaka in particular, again, you're thinking about the audience for this film. That people are going to recognize someone like him in the movie right off the bat as someone who looks tough, someone who you would argue is tough in real life. And I would even go a step further. I think that the fact that the film uses professional wrestlers, football players, bodybuilders is a testament to how the film is making a larger point about American entertainment. Because I especially with the way The Running Man is set up, every time I watch now, I can't help but make comparisons to pro wrestling in the sense of you have certain people the show's trying to push as the main characters. Ben Richards, over time, he gains the support of the crowd in the way that a babyface in wrestling would. And I can't, every time I watch it now, I can't help but think about pro wrestling and how it relates to this.
But it's true. So we think Killian as the booker sets Richards up as the heel, but ultimately he's so good, he wins over the crowd, and you can't have him be a heel anymore. He has to be the face.
Right. Well, in which they make that pitch, right? It's like, hey, let's turn you into a stalker, like and so forth, right?
But let's Rob, 1987 Vince McMahon totally books this. This is exactly the sort of thing Vince McMahon would book. Big beefy guys.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. We talk about famous face-offs and fights. Nobody in the 80s is more famous for this than Fleetwood Mac. This is 1987. How much cocaine did Mick Fleetwood do during the filming of this film? This was a question I had because Mick looks like Mick Fleetwood. He's fussy. He's not credited in the film for playing Mick, but it's understood he's playing himself in a dystopian future, correct?
I don't know if it's ever established, and also I'm not commenting on the first thing. Please, lawyers, send all your lawsuits to Jason Herbert somewhere in Colorado. I don't know if it's they call him Mick. I don't know if
he hints at. He goes, "You're the people who banned all my music." That's an Australian.
I guess it's supposed to be him. I don't think it's ever clearly said. And you got one of the Zappa kids in there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think it's supposed to be, look, here are these countercultural music long hair types. Although what I do think is funny is, especially for you, Rob, that no one gets the Mr. Spock joke, and it's like so inconceivable that someone wouldn't know about Star Trek. Which Star Trek movie had been out at that point? That's probably by
that
3,
was. By 4 was come out the previous year.
4 was 80s. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, Star Trek is so well known as a culture. I mean, if you don't like Star Trek, you know who Spock is.
America has fallen so far that Star Trek is no longer culturally relevant. That is the true dystopia for Rob.
I think, but I would even go a step further. Is that in the sense that because this is a dystopian film, it does make sense that something as hopeful as Star Trek would have fallen out of favor and would have been virtually forgotten about by younger people. And again, I love that scene also because as a college professor, every time I make a pop culture reference, that's how I feel in the classroom. When the students looking at me and saying, what are you talking about?
That's why you need to teach graduate students. You get a little bit more mileage on those jokes and those references.
I want to ask you guys a question about Arnold and what's going on in the 1980s. And I want to specifically point to the casting of this film with Maria Conchita Alonso as the opposite Arnold. In Predator, the opposite was Elpidia Carrillo, who played Anna. And then if we go on to say Total Recall, in 1990, right? Rachel Ticotin was played Melina in that film. So Arnold is having a run in the late 80s with Latina actresses being cast opposite him. Joseph Baena is Arnold Schwarzenegger's son. So I'm curious, does this reflective of like what's going on? Like, I couldn't help but notice that like all of a sudden, like Arnold has a string of actresses of Hispanic descent opposite playing his love interests in a lot of these films. And I kept like trying to put this together. Was Arnold telling us something? You know, because he gets married in 87? Is that right, Craig? Or 86, 87 when they're filming Predator.
Yes, I believe that's right.
You know, I just kept having these thoughts about like what is this telling us about Arnold?
Well, I can't comment on that, but Arnold,
I mean, you do know him.
Well, he has openly said he likes brunettes with certain attributes.
I mean, he's voluptuous is what he says in Total Recall.
No, I think he has for athletic in Total Recall.
Right.
But he has, if you go back to even how he first described Maria Shriver upon meeting her,
he's having a great bottom.
Something to that effect.
Yes. What does Arnold Schwarzenegger's brother look like? What does Bren Richards' brother look like? Because we know that Dutch has a brother in the Predator franchise. He's a cop, I think, in New York, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, just in the comic books.
Right, in the comic books. And he has his own series. What does Arnold... Because there's this whole idea that maybe Sven was like his brainwashed brother who had been sent to the re-education camp. I don't think that holds water.
Where did you see that?
That's interesting.
The internet, Craig, where you can find all...
I've never heard that one before. Why not?
If you were looking for something to validate your opinion, you only need to look at the internet. You can do your research there.
I have never encountered that one before, but why not? I don't think that holds up either.
All right.
But I guess the way you'd say is, because Arnold did have a brother, Meinhard, who died.
Yep.
So I'm going to say, I'm thinking that he's going to look like Meinhard.
Did he? I can't recall. I know his relationship with his father was not good. I seem to recall Arnold saying that Meinhard was his father's favorite, if I recall correctly. Do you recall in his memoirs, Craig, if he had a good relationship with his brother?
I don't recall. But again, I'm not. Don't quote me on this. I think their father used to put them in competition with each other.
I seem to remember that being correct.
I don't remember all the particulars. I know he obviously had a relationship with him, but his brother died fairly early on, fairly young, and then fairly early in Arnold's career. But I believe he kept up with there was his brother had a child. I believe he kept up with them. So, but again, I don't know as much about the interpersonal life.
Let me ask you this. What is this movie doing really well? We talk about this being, it's such a weird piece to like make a dystopian film because you're really predicting, say, 30, 40 years away. And you're, say, right in the middle, say, the Reagan era. You're influenced by the world around you, what you're seeing, and trying to base upon what you see now. And like we see these thoughts about capitalism and things like that, certainly reflected in the game show. But gentlemen, when we look at this film, how is it predicting the future? Or like, what do you see that this movie actually does really, really well?
But what's interesting, if you think about another sort of dystopian America film, Red Dawn, these are all starting with these food shortages. Again, obviously, Red Dawn starts with the food shortage in the Soviet Union, which leads to this invasion. Here, it's this food shortage at home that leads to sort of this crackdown on all sort of subversion. So I think this was something that's sort of being advanced in a lot of these films, that society is going to collapse because of a lack of resources, a lack of food. It's going to vary, what it is. I think that is sort of a common element in sort of these 80s films. It's also, and I would argue, we talked about this off camera, that there's just there's a fear of a totalitarian style government in America dating back to the founding. And I think that is just this ingrained Anglo-American fear, because it's not American. It goes back to England. You can go back to ancient Rome, and it's just this almost human condition, but certainly highly focused in this sort of American mindset of that the idea of a republic if you can keep it, this Franklin-esque, this Washingtonian-esque thing. I think that is what it's playing on. It's supposed to be jarring. But there are certain things they get completely wrong. So I will say, for a movie about the future, there's very little that's futuristic in this. Basically the furthest they get is, you can scan things, which, you kind of could do in the 80s, at least at the grocery store. And they're going to use those, the European gun the Germans used in Die Hard, to show it's futuristic. And we're going to put like sights on everything and flashlights. That'll show them. But I don't think it's really that futuristic.
I think that's a really important point about the look of the film and how it's set in the future but doesn't feel terribly futuristic. I can't help but compare it to another 1987 film, RoboCop, which is also set in the future.
Absolutely.
And that film also, it's set in the future, but it doesn't really feel like the future that we dream of. It's more like everything's lived in, dirty, rugged. And that's very much the case with The Running Man. But I think one thing that I like about The Running Man, and it gets right, is the importance of popular media, in particular television, and how television is driving so much of the film. In particular, this sort of warped sense of, this is what television is like in the 1980s. If we're not careful, it'll evolve into this by 2017.
And what's really interesting, again, obviously there's backlash against WWF, especially as WWF and we could say WCW as well, becomes the Attitude Era, and the NWO era comes in. It's darker, it's more adult. This isn't WWF superstars anymore. And also think about the backlash of what's going to come out a few years after this, American Gladiators.
Mm-hmm.
And how there's like this backlash about what this is portraying and how it's being portrayed, and let alone, the Netflix, behind the American Gladiators. So we see this sort of coming. I mean, how influential is The Running Man in something like American Gladiators? I don't know. We'd have to ask the creators. But I'm going to go even further than this. It's not just America in the 80s. Gladiatorial sport. Is this just part of the human condition? Do humans just want to see blood and violence and be entertained?
I think unquestionably. I in my own mind's eye, I'm trying to think about the civilizations. I study a different period in time than you guys do. But I'm thinking about globally. Obviously the first thing you think about is Rome, right? The gladiatorial combat there, obviously. But it seems to me this is a very human thing to watch men, sometimes women, fight as a form of entertainment. And, maybe that evolves out of the human need to defend one's society or honor or anything along those lines, right? And then it becomes like this thing people enjoy. But yeah, I remember my mom one time, I was talking to my mom. She's like, why do you I love to watch boxing. I can watch anybody box. I used to turn on back in the day. I used to be able to turn on Friday night fights on HBO or ESPN or whatever it was. I could watch boxing till 3, 4 in the morning. I love the strategy behind boxing, the sweet science, all of these different things, right? She's like, how could you watch this? I'm like, people have been watching this forever. I think that's the reason why this relates so well, because of course people are going to watch combat. I think the one thing that makes this different is the expectation that you're going to see someone killed, which is not the expectation, although there is a risk when we watch, say, UFC or something. I mean, it's always a risk. Someone takes a wrong hit or something like that. But with this show, I think there's the expectation that you're going to see death here.
Yeah, but that's like the old sort of thing where we're back to, Rome, where people I don't want to watch the games. Why? Because you're not going to enjoy it? No, because I might enjoy it.
Oh. I want to push back though quickly, Craig. You said that this film doesn't really predict the future, but what about deep fakes? Like, there's a portion of this film where the deep fake is very much they're constructing that fight between Arnold and Jesse. Seems to, and also like we haven't seen it yet, but like this idea of like was it Department of Justice has its own like what is it entertainment division or something like that. We don't we don't have that yet, and I'm just like, wow, we have Cops as a TV show that happened. That came out in the 90s, right?
Late 80s. I don't even remember.
I mean, but is that not a show? Department of Justice. I mean, it's certainly available. Like, seems like that has to get licensed by the law enforcement divisions by some to show the stuff, right? I think so. It feels like maybe there was predicting maybe some immediate stuff and then like some later on kind of distant stuff.
I'll 100% give you the deep fakes and then the shock of the audience. Ben Richards is alive.
Yeah, right. What about? Are there other parts of the film that when you look at it, you go, they really missed on this? Like when you watched it recently, we're like, I don't know. Boy, that sounded kind of Arnold.
So again, there's lots of it's got lots of one-liners, but I admit I love that about action movies.
You want to do the one-liner talk? You want to give us your favorite one-liner?
My favorite one-liner is, it's clearly Rob's already said it. Here is Sub-Zero.
Mine too. Damn it. I was hoping we would all have something different. I was like,
you think about, the line makes no freaking sense.
No, Plane Zero's more than Sub-Zero.
it makes no sense.
No,
None
you know what
whatsoever.
makes that line? Is how Arnold says it.
Oh, yeah.
That he says it with such conviction. It's like he's giving the Gettysburg Address or something. He's like, here is now.
No, Rob, you have to do
Zero.
an Arnold impression.
No, I am not.
It's up there with
Here's Sub-Zero. Now, Plane Zero.
But it's perfect. But the thing was, if it's 1987, you could have told Arnold, say whatever you want. It would have been great.
I mean,
like there's some lines.
No, please do not do the entire Gettysburg Address in the Arnold Schwarzenegger voice.
Oh my god! I'm crying. I'm laughing so hard right now. Sorry, I don't amuse myself like this, Craig. I'm sorry.
But it's true. But it's true. The lines in this movie, in and of themselves, are not particularly well written, but the delivery is great. Like, think about it. Leave enough room. I hope you leave enough room for my fist because I'm going to ram it into your stomach and break your spine.
Yeah. Harrison Ford used to complain that George Lucas wrote really bad dialogue. Arnold's like, let's just go with it.
Yeah, because he sells it. That is the mark of a true actor. He can make gold from.
And that's what we wanted, right? I mean, Arnold, and to a slightly lesser extent, I think that Stallone starts to do this because Arnold is so good at it.
Yes.
At the one-liners, but I really think it's Arnold is the king of the action. Going back to Stick Around or anything like that. Like, it's Stallone so good.
Can't hit it the same way.
No, I don't like. Stallone has to kind of make a quip to somebody else about a thing he did.
So, I mean, it's the one who first started doing it was Sean Connery in the Bonds.
Oh yeah.
In that he would just invent lines that weren't in the script and they were like baffled, and he argued that's why he deserved a pay raise because he was writing better dialogue than they were. I think Arnold perfects it though.
He does.
Well, there is a one-liner that I think of now that we're having this conversation that I think is a lot like those James Bond one-liners when he says after they killed Sub-Zero, he says, "Oh, he was a real pain in the neck," and that one works because they're just kind of running away from the camera as he says it just nonchalantly.
But he does that for Buzzsaw too. Oh, yeah. He had to split.
Yeah, he's yeah.
That's like in
and Everybody in Commando.
Yeah, and we got it's Steve D'Souza wrote them both.
Not shocking. It's almost shocking that they didn't make this film set in Valverde.
They should have.
Right? They put Arnold on an island.
Well, he could have. When he was trying to flee the country, he could have been He should have been fleeing to Valverde.
Valverde. Yeah. I would have made. Boy, that would have been perfect, right? Okay, I've got some more questions here. We talked early on about the idea of like of an Arnold pantheon. And like this is an old conversation. I don't want to rehash the entire conversation, but for people now, we kind of decided like you can make your pick who the most powerful form of Schwarzenegger is. And generally, I think we come down to it's one of two guys. It's the Arnold and Predator or the Arnold and Commando. The three of us tend to go back and forth on this.
Yeah, I know Conan in there throws it sometimes.
Conan throws it a little bit, but we always kind of use the idea of the Terminator as like which of these guys could defeat the Terminator is almost like the demarcation line. I think it's like what Rob had once said, and like that's who and so forth. And I think we kind of said those two guys definitely could have defeated Terminator, and maybe from True Lies, Harry Stamper,
Tasker, yeah, Tasker could have,
right? Tasker, sorry. So I keep thinking about this film in relation, though, to Total Recall. The character seems really, really similar. The film feels similar to Total Recall in a lot of different ways. I think maybe Recall's a better film.
Well, it's got a more original concept.
Yeah.
I got a higher production value. They spend a lot of money.
Definitely higher production value, right? So here's my question then. So since we spent all that time putting Commando Arnold versus against Predator Arnold, I want to put Ben Richards against Doug Quaid. Who do you got?
You probably are. Again, it depends. Are we putting them in like gladiatorial style combat?
In your mind's eye, like when you think about the attributes, like you put them in, you drop them into a situation. So two men enter, one man has to leave. Who do you got?
So it's tricky because I think Total Recall has the highest Arnold body count. I think that's right.
Even more than Commando?
I think it might.
Okay.
I don't know. Someone could fact check that.
It's probably up there. It's definitely up there.
But Richards he's again. We've talked about this. Who defeats the more challenging villain?
That's why I argue Predator.
And it's fair. And here with you could say you have these Richards is defeating these gladiators that do this for a living.
Mm-hmm.
So if you throw Quaid may have a better set of skills, but if you're throwing them in some pit and saying survive, I know Ben Richards can do that.
Well, I think a different way to answer this question is to ask the question of if you switch the two characters in the films, what happens? Good point.
Okay.
And I could see Richard surviving in Total Recall, considering who he'd be up against. I think Quaid would survive in The Running Man, but I'm not as sure about that. Only because it seems, like we were saying a moment ago, that Richards is going up against guys in The Running Man who have likely killed dozens, if not hundreds of people. And they're very skilled at it, they're very talented at it. Whereas in Total Recall, I mean, again, it's not exactly like an easy day at the office for him, but I just think that the villains in The Running Man are more dangerous. They're more compelling in some ways.
See, I actually feel the opposite. I feel like Doug Quaid defeats Ben Richards here. I think Quaid is smarter. I think Richards keeps getting captured in The Running Man. He keeps getting caught. This is a problem if you want to survive a situation.
That is true.
That's understandable.
That's
like
fair.
Once, okay, they've all got to get caught one time. Even the Commando Arnold gets caught once, right? Predator Arnold never gets caught. I'm just saying that, like, I feel like Quaid is smarter than Richards, and I feel like Quaid is almost like a super soldier waiting to be awakened. There's an underlying skill set that he is continually discovering.
That's fair.
Right?
Yeah.
No, and he defeated Sharon Stone. Right? I'm just saying. So, consider the voice is one of the great Arnold lines.
So that's fair, and I think again, I don't disagree, because if you think about the backstory of Arnold characters, of some are like this commando, or I've been a pit fighter since I was stolen from my family, or I'm this experienced combat vet. Hi, I'm Ben Richards. I'm a cop who flies a chopper. on the
I'm a
on the
Chapo.
it's pretty light by comparison to a lot of his other ones.
You know what? You're going to lose our entire helicopter listening podcast audience right now. But go on.
But again, the Arnold that's getting to the chopper is infinitely more powerful than the Arnold that is flying the chopper.
Yeah. Okay. And I just feel like Quaid is he's in this detective mission. I mean, because Total Recall in a lot of ways is film noir, right? It's a guy discovery. He's a mystery. It's all this stuff, and it's taking place on Mars, right?
But the one thing I will say, Ben Richards can get through airport security better than Doug Quaid can. He doesn't need a fancy mask. All he needs is a Hawaiian shirt.
All right. Let me ask you this particular question. You are both historians of the United States. You can choose any three people. Let's date this, say, to anyone who we know of prior to, say, 1987. So no presidents after 87. So you can't put Clinton in here, right? You know, I'm going to make this a presidential thing. You can choose any president prior to the Reagan administration to drop into the Running Man. Who has the best chance of surviving the Running Man?
George Washington.
I'm shocked by this, Craig. I am completely shocked by this. Rob,
I'm just saying he's.
Oh, you know what? Give me three, Craig, so that you can say someone other than George Washington.
All right.
No, and you can't pick. No, you're going to assemble a team. So, Craig, you picked Washington. Now it's Rob's turn, and then Rob gets to pick two.
So we need a Lachlan and a Weiss to go with the Washington that is Arnold.
So you picked Washington. Now Rob's going to pick two people.
Should we also pick a first lady to be?
I'm jumping in on this too. Now, first lady. Okay, so here's how we're going to go. We're going to go Craig, Rob, Jason.
Okay.
All right, and we'll go in reverse order in round two. Okay, so round 1, 2, 3. All right, Craig, your first person.
Washington, like I said.
GW. All right, Rob, who you got?
Andrew Jackson.
AG. Okay. I'm going to go Lincoln, Prime Lincoln, the rail splitter.
Good.
And I'm going TR for my second pick. Rob?
Oh, see, I was going to go with Teddy Roosevelt as well.
Go Franklin.
Goodness gracious! I'm thinking through the presidents now. It's starting,
and you can choose them in the prime of their lives, not when they're 70. Okay.
Well, okay. In that case, then I would go with Ulysses Grant.
Oh, good call. All right, Craig, who you got?
Zachary Taylor.
Rough and ready. Some of our audiences are going, who the Zach Taylor?
It's Craig, a deep cut.
All right, Craig, that leads you to the next pick. You have one more pick here.
Oh, is it to me?
3, yeah, it's your pick. We have 3 people. You have to. So far you've got George Washington and Zach Taylor.
You know what? I'm gonna go Harry Truman. If he can survive the trenches, he can survive the Running Man.
All right, Rob, who you got?
You know, I was thinking of Truman as well, but I think another option I'm going to go with is actually James Garfield, who fought in the Civil War.
Ooh. Oh God, Garfield is this fascinating guy that I think is like, if only we could have had his presidency, right?
Absolutely.
You ready? I'm going to go Jimmy Carter. Prime.
That's a good pick.
You need a smart guy on the team. It's hard to go against Jimmy Carter.
He diffuse like a nuclear reactor when he was like a
he's and complete outdoorsman. This guy was constantly physically, he survived for so long, and just like he was in great shape. Like the guy grew up outdoors. Like he knew how to work the land.
I don't mean to cut you off, but now imagining Jimmy Carter saying here is Sub-Zero, now playing 0-1. I'm going to be laughing about that the rest of tonight.
It is a crisis of lacking of zero.
I mean, maybe Jimmy would like talk everyone down, but like, why do we have to kill each other? Like he would be. He's the peacemaker, man.
He'd boycott the Running Man and.
All right, let me give me your leading lady in this film. Your leading
Dolly
president.
Madison.
Ooh, Craig, that's Dolly Madison. All right,
because we know she's cool under pressure when the enemy's approaching and can.
I would have to go with this is going to sound like, again, out of left field, Abigail Adams.
Why is
my
that?
personal favorite. I think the fact that, again, she was so important to John Adams. She's there in the early Republic. I don't know. I just get a sense that she would be tough enough to get through this situation.
You mean when her husband rides off to Philadelphia, leaving her with all the kids in a smallpox epidemic?
Absolutely.
Listen, then I'm going Eleanor Roosevelt all day long.
Mm.
Just no question here. All right, we're going to put this out to our listeners and see which team they think would have done best in the Running Man later on.
Honestly, I think we all have pretty good.
Yeah,
teams.
mine is definitely the best, but it's cool.
No. You again. It doesn't matter. As we learned in the Running Man, all it takes is one man, and I have the best man. So there we go.
You have Abraham Lincoln, the rail splitter. You have a Kentuckian on your team? I don't think so.
To quote The Simpsons, we had quitters in the Revolution too. We called them Kentuckians.
You're not very nice, is all I'm going to say. What happens after the Running Man? Let's do a historical. This is the big question here. The movie runs off. Now Schwarzenegger and Maria Conchita Alonso are together. What happens the next day? Like what happened? What happens to Ben Richards?
So that's a really good question. If they did a Running Man 2, is Richards now fleeing the country, or is he
a national hero?
Or is he a national hero? Does he become a revolutionary figure? Because remember, for most of the movies, like, I just want to get out of here. To hell with your causes. All you do is talk. You don't have any action. So is Richards winning the Running Man the equivalent of Rocky Balboa's change speech in 1985? Does it one ends the Cold War? Does this end this regime in this futuristic America? Is Ben Richards a new founding father? Because I'm going to go one further here. If we're thinking about Arnold as, he's becoming a citizen in 1983, Ben Richards is really one. I think someone can correct me here. I think it's the first time there's not a backstory that explains why he has an accent. He's got an American.
No, actually, they refer to him as Fritz in the film. Is the co-prisoners. Laughlin calls him Fritz early in the film.
Fair, but the idea that there's sort of this Americanized element to him, but again, there's allusions to it. I think the first time there's no backstory at all to him is True Lies.
Or we just accept it.
Which is, I also think, is the high point of American power, I would argue. And True Lies shows the high point of American power.
So
that's a whole other episode.
What happens to Ben Richards, Craig? What happens next?
I think, much like the founding fathers, who oftentimes in their youth may have had more individualized ways of thinking. So think about George Washington. He's out for glory. He's out for rank. He's out for, advancement. But then he starts to recognize what's wrong. And then he starts to equate his plight with those of other Americans and becomes a national figure. I like to think that Ben Richards becomes a new George Washington.
I think there's one of two options here. The positive option, the more optimistic one, is that Richard's actions lead to a genuine national revolution. That the country is so enamored with him and they're inspired by him that they take things in their own hands and change the regime. But what I think actually happens is he gets killed on that very next day.
Yes, I think so
too. The reason I say this is we can't forget the fact that we've seen in this film the use of deep fake technology. We don't know how far this government will go in terms of rewriting history. And so people may have watched all that happen live. And then the next day they wake up and somebody comes on television and says, "Oh, that didn't actually happen." They'll find some way to dismiss it. And I think at that point, again, you mentioned the Department of Justice. I think they throw everything they have at him at that point to stop him, to make sure that he doesn't become a figure. And in fact, I would actually almost bet that they don't even say if he's killed, he just simply goes missing so that he can't become a martyr. Maybe that's cynical Rob speaking, but that's what I think happens the next day.
Rob, I think you're absolutely right.
Option 3, he gets his ass to Mars.
Ah.
there is that.
I think he presents too much of a challenge to the powers. He's exposed the corruption on high, has like this following. I think he's too much. He's one guy, right? I just
One
feel
man
like
can make a difference, Jason. They
I feel
played
like
a power ballad at the end.
they. I feel like he's
Scream it from the highest tower.
I feel like they murder. I feel like they both get murdered. The resistance gets stomped out because now the resistance is exposed. Ben Richards' brother is never found. I think I like Rob's idea that like it's not even that like they catch him and try him. If he's never heard from again, there's nothing to rally around. So
But would they? But here's the thing: if you're talking about a world where it's so consumed by ratings and entertainment, wouldn't they just throw him back in The Running Man 2?
No, I think you kill him. I think he's a problem now.
So again, this fact that you're both deeply wedded to dystopian ideas and don't believe in good and hope. I've got one thing for you. Have you seen? I think it's John and Al Kaplan. It's on YouTube. They do The Running Man the musical.
No,
I've not seen that.
You should watch it. Now, I bring it up because the whole premise of this musical, it's like a music video, is that the Hunger Games are a ripoff of The Running Man. And the chorus is F you, the Hunger Games. And so what I always say is I remember seeing my wife took me to see the Hunger Games when it first came out in the movies. I never even heard of it before. And she was describing it to me. I said, so it's The Running Man. She's like, no, it's not The Running Man. My wife has never seen
Running Man with archery.
My wife has never seen The Running Man, but she's sworn to me it's not The Running Man. I said, it sounds
It's about food and poverty.
like just dystopian future. People are sent to fight to distract the population, and then if you win, you supposedly get like freedom and those. Well, yeah, that sounds like The Running Man. No, it's not like The Running Man. So we see it the whole time. Watch the movie, okay? And I think The Hunger Games is fine. I come out and I say, it was The Running Man, and she was very upset about that. But then this video came up, and it completely proved my point. So I want to ask: to quote the Running Man the musical, is The Running Man just a shitty version for tweens?
No. But I do have a question for you. As we're coming up, what ultimately prompted this conversation is the fact that we now have a new Running Man film coming out soon with Glenn Powell. Mm-hmm. Do you have plans to see it?
I don't want to. I'll be honest.
Because the 87 Running Man departs quite a bit from Stephen King's novel, and it sure looks to be like this is a much closer interpretation of the novel.
I am not going to dispute that the production value of the new one will be higher. I'm sure the story will be tighter, but for me personally, it will not be able to live up. Just like when they did remakes of Conan, remakes of Total Recall. Who else knows what they're going to remake in the future? Without Arnold, it doesn't work in the same way. And you could say it's just me, but I think you need someone like him to carry a movie like that. And I think without the one-liners, without the believability that he could survive, it doesn't work. Glenn Powell, I know Tom Cruise is manufacturing him in some airplane hangar somewhere. And I like him. He's not Arnold. He's not 87 Arnold. And I know that's going to be part of the thing. Can he survive? Will he survive? It's got a better director. I will 100% give you that. I'll say I have no doubt I'll see it. Am I running out to pay to see it? Probably not. Although I did love the President Schwarzenegger on the $100 bill. That was a nice nod.
Rob,
I'm intrigued by this version of the film because I think it's leaning much more into the idea of this actual Running Man has no business surviving. Mm-hmm. Because when you watch the 87 version, you're thinking, okay, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. You just look
How
at
much
him,
danger is he really going to get in, right?
But I think with this version of the Running Man coming up, it will be really interesting to see if they're even going to try to predict the future, or if it's simply a more souped up version of what we live in right now. For one thing, in terms of talking about things like social media, that kind of, I'm assuming that'll be in the film in some form or fashion. I mean, the fact that the cameras are on him 24/7 in this version, and people are trying to kill him, like in the real
something with
world.
drones, something with AI,
Right.
something with people like streaming it.
I will say though, the main reason I would go see this is actually because of Coleman Domingo, basically having the role of the game show host in this, and that looks really fascinating to me.
I love that the world has really discovered Coleman Domingo. He's been a working actor for so long, and he's been heralded, right? But now he seems like he's everywhere. Yeah.
Well, we have to talk about. So we have Richard Dawson playing Killian,
right?
All right. So famous for the Family Feud, after Hogan's Heroes, among other things. So can we trace this all back? Is this somehow, did Richard Dawson, is he the butterfly wings that created the world of the running, the actual Richard Dawson, or is it going back to like a quiz show?
Well, Dawson ends up getting cast. He was actually the second pick.
Who was the first pick?
He was another guy. He was another game show host at the time. Who was it?
Chuck Woolery or someone?
Chuck Woolery. Was Chuck Woolery?
Oh god,
Chuck Woolery's a bigger guy.
Yeah.
He was more physically thought, but when he wasn't available, so they went with Dawson, who was a friend with Schwarzenegger. And of course, the reputation was that Dawson's character is not dissimilar to Dawson as a person, who was not known to be a good dude. To the scene where he has the janitor fired. Dawson was kind of known to be a bit of a. Remember, this is back on the show. He was making all the women kiss him, and he's kind of gross by, I think, today's standards. And I remember when I was a kid, go, I don't like this dude. And I was just a child, so I don't know. I will say the thing that I'll be watching for. I think that when you do a film like this with The Running Man, because the shadow of Schwarzenegger is so long, you have to do something like what they did with Predators, which is cast a new lead who is nothing like Schwarzenegger, right? Because they tried to make The Rock into Schwarzenegger, and The Rock can't act. He doesn't have Schwarzenegger's charisma. He's not that. It's like, okay, just because you've got muscles doesn't mean you're the guy. So when they had Adrian Brody, it's like, here's this wiry. He kind of looked like a special forces guys kind of look like, right? And I thought he was really good. So right, you move to a different archetype for the character. But the thing I'll be looking for is the commentary on what we think in 2025 the future looks like versus what in 1987 they thought the future looked like. Because I think a lot of the social anxieties of the era get reflected in what dystopia looks like in the future.
Oh, of course.
Oh,
so I'll be interested in seeing how that's reflected.
Did they say what year they're setting it in? I might have missed it.
I have not seen that part. I don't know that yet. It looks pretty contemporary, frankly, from the one trailer I saw. So it'll be interesting if is it the far future or is it the near future? My guess is probably near future is my guess on there. So that said, what's our next film, guys? What are we doing next? Rob?
Well, I mean, at some point, I think we have to do Commando, right? Like, isn't that dancing around it for a long time?
We have been dancing around Commando. Can we do Commando as the greatest action film ever made?
Yeah, we could do that.
Can we do 90 minutes on celebration of the greatest action movie ever made?
We'll do a podcast that's longer than the actual movie.
That has happened so many times on this podcast, Craig. I look at the timer on this thing and I start apologizing to Fletcher in my head. I was like, oh no, I think the longest one we had one when we did Dungeons and Dragons. It ran, the original take on that ran 4 hours.
4 hours on that?
4 hour conversation on Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, it was a great conversation. And Fletcher ended up cutting it down to, I think, 2 hours and 45 minutes. And I know that, like, the very first one we did on Raiders of the Lost Ark went nearly 3 hours. But when you have multiple guests, that was when we were 3 guests in this instance. But yeah, we could absolutely do 90 minutes.
Yeah, I think
Commando all day long.
The greatest action movie of because I would argue that every action movie after that follows that sort of
certainly for the 80s. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, gentlemen, Craig Smith, Robert Greene, guys, thank you so much for being here and being my friends who I would happily lead you through. We are the Running Men. I'm afraid to tell you that I would be the one that survives the Running Man, but I think the two of you guys would be very interesting side characters people would be invested in. So I want you to know that I think your deaths would further the narrative. So thank you for that.
Well, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing I don't do requests.
Guys, thank you so much. I love you to both. I love you both. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap here at Reckoning with Jason Herbert. Thank you so very much to our 2 guests, my 2 great friends, Robert Greene II and Craig Bruce Smith. Guys, I love you to bits. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to have you on to talk about Commando and God knows what else. Thank you to Fletcher Powell for making the show go. And thank you to you guys for continuing to be our audience. Please continue to show. If you like the pod, please leave us a good review on Apple or Spotify. It helps our algorithms and all the things that I don't understand. And we've got a whole lot more pods coming for you. So thanks for being here, and we'll talk to you later. Ciao for now.